And happy Monday, January 23rd, 2023, and welcome to a brand new edition of what we like to call the Isolation Cabin. I am your host, the vegan you believe in, Kirk Cadet, and I know what you guys are going to say. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and you're right, it has been a while. I changed cities around the time I did my last episode, about a year and a half ago, and I went through my own isolation period myself, which is what I want to kind of get into today. At one time or another, we all end up getting isolated. Whether it's when we're kids, whether it's when we're teenagers, whether it's when we're adults. Sometimes things happen that cause us to become isolated and causes us to, close off from the outside world. And as somebody who's gone through that myself multiple times, I can testify to say that it definitely has its pitfalls. Many, many pitfalls. Because look, I know sometimes we like to be alone and sometimes we like to do our own thing, and that's good. But there's just a certain limit to that amount of time you spend by yourself and spend isolated without any access to anybody else. Because when it gets to the point that you're self-isolating and missing events and canceling events and not wanting to go anywhere, not wanting to do anything, then you're not in a good, healthy place by any stretch. Any stretch at all. And it's a horrible place to be in. When you just don't feel like doing anything, you just don't feel like going outside, you have no energy, you have no spark for life. It sucks. And sometimes it just happens because of reasons that are beyond our control. Whether we lose a loved one, whether we have to move suddenly, whether we miss out on an opportunity that we really wanted badly, or lose a job, etc. Yeah, it's hard. It can be hard to overcome those things and not let those things bring you down a dark path and bring you down a dark road. But how long you stay in that state and how long you allow yourself to be in that state is what makes the difference between a life where you're living and you're thriving and a life where you're simply just existing. Because for pretty much the last year or so, that's what I was doing. Was really in an unhappy place ever since I moved. It was a real rough and tough adjustment period. Also going through a breakup not too long after that on top of that didn't help either. And yeah, I was just not a happy person. And it just got to the point where I wouldn't go out, wouldn't do anything, have no social life whatsoever. And hey, I know when we get older, we don't like, most of us I know don't like to go out as much anymore and kind of like to be more homebodies. And I get that, and there's good to that. But it's not healthy to not go out at all and not socialize at all. It's just not. I don't care how much you dislike people. I don't care how much you say that you're not in the matrix anymore and that you don't live in the circle that other people live in. Everybody eventually needs somebody. There's only so much time you can spend by yourself without anybody to socialize with, share stories with, share memories with, and just have a good time with. Yeah, because that stuff matters. It matters to have those kind of people and have those kind of experiences where you spend time with other people, whether it's a stranger, whether it's a person you've known for years. Those kind of experiences are, in many ways, what make life worth living, as corny as that may sound. One good thing I did do in the last year and a half since I've done one of these episodes was I did travel outside of the country for about a month. And one of the things I enjoyed doing while I did that was going to a music festival. And while it may not have been the best music festival per se, according to my best friend who took me there, I still had a good enough time to know that it's something I wanted to do a lot more, and it's something I definitely want to make more of a tradition for myself. And the main thing I liked about it was just being in an outside place surrounded by so many people with good vibes, with good energy, who you just connect with. And the funny thing about that is that these people who you connect with so well are pretty much total strangers. And even if you're different, even if you come from different places, and even if don't have that much in common on paper, you can still enjoy their presence and enjoy their company and enjoy being around them to a degree. Because you don't have to always just live in your own bubble and live in your own world and just live in your own head 24 hours a day. Because after a while, trust me, that shit will get old. Old. And take this from somebody who spent a lot of time alone and a lot of time isolated. Some of that self-isolation, I take responsibility for that. And some of that isolation beyond my control. And trust me, it gets very old after a while. Extremely, extremely old. So you ask yourself, after the things I've talked about, how do I get myself out of that state of isolation and that isolated place? And hey, it's not easy. I'm still going through it myself. I'm still on the road to recovery and on the road to getting into a more centered space, is, I guess, if you want to put it in any way. But if I could just suggest to you little things, I would say is just spend time outside as much as you can, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's playing sports. Just spend out some time outside. Trust me, spending time outside, especially when you're in nature, it'll do wonders for you. Being cooped up in your house all day, especially in the dark with the blinders in your house closed, there's so many links to depression, to that kind of life, it's not even funny. And I was somebody who used to do that when I was a kid, and I look back at it now and I cringe. Yeah, if there's one thing I could suggest as far as getting on the road to getting out of that isolation, is just go outside. Go outside. It could be for 20 minutes, it could be for an hour, it could be all day long, but just go outside for at least a part of the day. Also, another thing I can suggest is getting out of your own head. And hey, as an introvert, I know that task is easier said than done. But living in your headspace 24 hours a day without a break and not socializing with people outside of your head, outside of your personal space, it can get scary sometimes. I will admit, it can get scary. Because the longer you spend time in your own head and your own thoughts, the more time it gives a lot of negative thoughts that you shouldn't be thinking about, the time to creep up on you. And that's why I say be careful and be wary of that amount of time you spend in your own head, because it can cause a lot of problems and a lot of stress that you just do not need. And honestly, it's for nothing. It's literally for nothing. So if you're somebody who's in your head 24 hours a day and you have a hard time getting out of it, I suggest definitely going out in the sun. That's one thing. And also just focusing on things that are not about yourself. I guess that's a good way to put it. Talk to a friend, talk to a family member, go out and do an activity, whatever it is. But the longer you spend in your own head and those own negative thoughts, the better chance they have of consuming you. So whatever it is, whatever you need to do to keep your mind off of that, whether it's a funny thing that happened when you were a kid, or a movie that you like, or a person you like hanging out with, whatever it may be, just do not get stuck in your own head, especially when that bullshit creeps on you. Do not do it. Shit is nowheresville. And that brings me to another point of mine I wanted to make, is just go out and socialize. Go out and make friends. And I say this as someone who's had a problem with that for years. And admittedly, as I've gotten older, it has been harder for me to make close friends. And it's been harder for me to build those kind of relationships where I can trust that person literally with my life. But I've just learned that if you close those relationships off and don't even try and don't even give it a chance, you're really cheating yourself. There is so much good that can come from just friendships with people, whether it be your coworkers, whether it be people you meet at the gym, people you meet at a concert, or whichever it may be. Yeah, there's just so much good that can come from meeting people, socializing with people, getting to know them, letting them get to know you, and just not being in your own little bubble all day long, in your own little space all day long, and thinking that you don't need people and that you don't need to talk to people. And honestly, it's mad whack. It's a mad whack way to live. And I say this speaking as a vegan and speaking as somebody who has different thoughts and different opinions from most of the opinions that are considered popular. I'm not saying you have to back down from those opinions and those beliefs, but you don't have to live your life in a way where you think you're better than people and that you think you're too good to talk to people, and to the point where you just don't want to have any friends and then you just act like you don't need anybody. And I'm here to tell you that's a shitty way to live. And I know I said this a few minutes ago, but no matter how independent you are, no matter how strong you are, no matter how much of a free thinker you are, everybody eventually needs somebody. There's going to come a point in time when you least expect it where you're going to need somebody. And when you close yourself off from people and push them away and self-isolate yourself to that unhealthy of a degree, who are you going to call when that time comes? Yeah, because self-isolation temporarily, if you're trying to accomplish some kind of goal or something, that I understand. I get that. I don't knock that. But self-isolation that goes on for years, where you don't talk to nobody, where you don't go out, where you have no sunlight, no energy, no zest for life, it's just a slow form of suicide at the end of the day. And I don't know about you guys, but I know I'm not ready to die. And I sincerely hope all of you feel that same way, because despite whatever bullshit that's going on in the world and negative things that's going on in the world, there's just so much good out there in the world, so much positive shit out there in the world, so many cool people out there in the world you probably haven't even met yet. There's just so much of that good shit out there to focus on that at the end of the day, it's not worth it to be so consumed with all that negative shit. That negative bullshit is just for the birds. It will get you nowhere in life to live your life that way and to think that that's just the way it should be and that's the way it is and there's no hope for anything better. There is hope for something better. There's always hope for something better. It might not happen overnight. It may be a process. It may be a long journey, but that shit is out there. I fucking promise you. That hope, that better life, that better shit, that happiness you thought you could never have, that shit does exist. That shit can happen for you. It can happen. But it won't happen if you stay so isolated and do nothing about it. Because you can get put in a bad place, but it's up to you if you stay there. And if you choose to stay there, you're really cheating yourself out of so many good experiences, so many potential good relationships, and so many great adventures that you can tell people for years to come and have as a memory for the rest of your life, that you can always look back on and smile about and be happy about. It's not worth it to miss out on those things. The world we live in, for whatever negative you see in it, horrible things you see in it, and granted those things do exist, it would be a damn shame to miss out on all that good stuff that the world has to offer just because we allow the negative stuff to keep us in a dark place and in a place where we have no connection with anyone. And that's what it's all about. In this life and the people we interact with, it's all about connections. I'm not talking about connections as in hookups per se, like getting a job or getting into a nightclub. I'm talking about connection where the people you interact with, you guys can share on experiences, you guys can share on ways you grew up, you can share on things you like that are the same, or beliefs that you hold that are similar. Those kind of connections with people is shit not to take lightly. And if you have that with people, whether it's a stranger, whether it's somebody you've known your whole life, just realize how lucky you are to have it. Because unfortunately, a lot of people either are in no position to have those things, or they cheat themselves out of those things as a form of self-sabotage. And honestly, that's what self-isolation really is. In many ways, it's just self-sabotage on a higher level. I know this is the isolation cabin. I know I came up with the idea for the show during COVID because we were isolated and didn't have any choice. And hey, I'm sure COVID was a big part of why maybe a lot of people have felt this way even more the last few years. I'm definitely not a person who doubts that. But there's only so long you can stay that way. There's only so long you can live that way. And I'm here to tell you, the sooner you get out of that shit, the sooner you decide to put yourself out there, allow yourself to connect with people, get out of your comfort zone, get out of your own head, and allow yourself to live life, the better quality of life you'll have in the long run. And if there's any proof of that, it's me. Well, guys, I think I've said what I needed to say today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this edition of the Isolation Cabin. I'll be back with you guys next week talking about this, among many other issues we have in our everyday lives that bring us down to a level that we don't want to be in, that we're not happy in, and what we can do to fix that and get out of that place. Because you can get put in a bad place, but at the end of the day, it's really up to you whether or not you stay there. So until next time, God bless, guys. Take care.